Okay. Everybody can see the prayer book now, I presume? Okay. So now we recite. We start over again. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dagla dang wa je pe dra no pa je pe ge. Tarpa dang tam she ken pe bar du jo par je pa tam she ki so je pe. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang den. Dog now dang dwell nor du la na me pa yang dag par zog pe zhang ju brin po she to pa ja. The action bodhicitta prayer. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Deshe du sang ma ge gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Ma she bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Du de ring ne song te ni ma sang ta sam gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Next is the long refuge prayer. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Tren san sa wa danger pa je pe pao den la ma dam pa nam la kab su chi o. Yedam kil gorgi la sok nam la kab su chi o. Sangye chom den de nam la kab su chi o. Dam pe cho nam la kap su chi o. Pa pe ge dun nam la kap su chi o. Pa pe ge dun nam la kap su chi o. Pa wo ka jo cho kyong song me song yes she gi chang dang dem pa nam la kap su chi o. Taking the Bodhisattva vow. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shangshu Ning Por Chi Ki Bar Sangye Nam La Kapsu Chi Chodang Shangshu Sampa Yi So Klang De Shin Kapsu Chi Jitar Nonggi De Shegi Shangshu Togni Ki Padang Shangshu Sampe La Pala De Dagrim Shin E Patar De Shin Dro La Pendandu Shangshu Samni Ki Ki Shing De Shin Du Ni La Pala Rempa Shindu La Pa Ji O. Next is the short refuge prayer. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang Sangye Chodang Soki Chonam Shangshu Bardu Dagni Kapsu Chi Dagi Jin Soki Pe Sonam Yi Drola Penshir Sangye Ju Pasho. The four immeasurables, the four vast and measurable qualities of bodhicitta. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she de wadang de we gurdang dem bajur chi. Dug now dang da now gi gu dang dra wajur chi. Dug now me pe de wadang mi dra wajur chi. Nei ring chak dang ni dang dra wei tang nam la nei pa jur chi. Okay, thank you. Those are our opening prayers. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the opening prayers or anything that we've been talking about in the past few weeks? Please just turn on your microphone or raise your hand. Okay. So everybody must be comfortable with that. Thank you. That's good. So what we are trying to do, of course, is to develop what we call one-pointed mindfulness. The mindfulness that we are a spiritual being and that we are in this world of phenomenal existence. And we say this phenomenal existence because we don't know really how it is that we got here. We don't know what this is. We've got ideas. We talk about, theories and conventions that we agree that certain things look like this and sound like that and so on like that. But just what it is itself, we really don't know. And this is part of the human condition. Animals, other beings, they look at these things and they don't analyze them. They don't think about them. Human beings are always trying to understand where they are and who they are. And so they create these stories for themselves. They create these ideas for themselves. Oh, this is what it is. But when we examine it, we find out that it's really built on just conjecture. It's built on fabrication. And we buy into it. We're taught this by our parents, we're taught it in schools, we're taught it, when we go out to work, we live these fabrications that we've created for ourselves. So for us to be able to recognize that, we need to be able to have a stable spirituality, because everything that I just said was all based on the intellect and the observation of the physical. And that's all, as I say, arbitrary. But in our spirituality, there is this ultimate nature, this nature that is beyond our ordinary human existence, being able to understand what it is. Through our practices, through our meditations, our contemplation, and so on, we're able to develop this one-pointed mindfulness that kind of cuts through all those mental fabrications, all those physical phenomena, cuts through it and gets to the spirituality of it. And we begin to have these experiences of spirituality. We may already have them as an ordinary person. We might be out fishing on a boat, on a lake, in a very pure environment, very nice, taking a walk in the woods, maybe on the laying on the beach at the ocean, or just some very nice serene place where all of a sudden this one-pointed mindfulness just comes together, because we are spiritual beings, whether we realize it or not. And all of a sudden we have this kind of an epiphany. We have this kind of awakening. We have this kind of realization of where we are, who we are, in a grander scale of things that can be quite startling. But it can be very blissful. It can be very happy, and we're really glad that we had this. But it doesn't stay with us, because we don't have the words to be able to describe it. We don't understand, what that was, and so on. So it can be kind of forgotten very quickly as it comes. So what we're trying to do is to develop the technique for us to be able to recreate those moments for ourselves, to be able to stabilize those moments for ourselves, and be able to explore those moments for ourselves of what our true nature is, of what our spirituality is. And through that, we begin to understand this relative nature of our intellect and of our physical body. And we accept that and say, okay, well, that's what this life is. But there is something that is this kind of a continuum that we're part of, that goes beyond what we see, what we hear, what we think with our intellectual mind. So in order for us to do that, we need to be able to have a practice. We have to have a system by which we can focus our attention to develop that one-pointed mindfulness, that single thought, single devotion to this. as we do this, we are trying to develop 8 great human realizations, or human perfections is the better way to say it, human perfections. And to help us do that, in Buddhism, we talk about 8 great bodhisattvas. So we talked a while ago about that we have these deities that are all within ourselves, that are aspects of this diamond, our diamond nature, and each one of these aspects has a name and has an activity and so on. And so, so this is our human condition. This is within ourselves. So, in order for us to be able to organize that, we've broken it down, or we see that there are these 8 great human perfections that help us to understand this. So, the first of these, going in a particular order, the first of these is the Bodhisattva of cultivation. So this Bodhisattva means the holy enlightened being. Bodhi is a Sanskrit word that means enlightenment, and Sat means a being, and a Va, Sattva, is a holy being. So it's a holy enlightened being. So this is a human being who's on the path to become a Buddha, to become awakened. So the first of these 8 great bodhisattvas, the first of this realization, or these, is cultivation. That we need to be able to cultivate our mind, our awareness of what this is. So the analogy we use is like a gardener. A gardener goes out and says, oh, I want to grow tomatoes, I want to grow zucchini, I want to grow broccoli, I want to grow corn, I want to grow all these things, and I need to be able to make a place where I can do that. So I have in my mind that there's this garden that I want to do. And maybe I picture it in my mind, and I begin to cultivate all my skills, all my abilities to be able to do that. So for us as spiritual beings, we're trying to develop that cultivation for ourselves to be able to recognize that one-pointed mindfulness. So the first of these is that cultivation. That we focus on that. And the second thing is that we bring our practical wisdom together. We bring our knowledge together. We maybe do some research about what it is to create a garden. What do we need to do to break up the sod that is there, and to how to plow that, and what fertilizers we might need to condition that soil so it's going to be able to give the plants the nutrition that they need, and where do we get the seeds, and what kind of seeds we want, what kind of starter plants that we need. We start gathering all that information, and then we start applying it to the garden itself. We start digging it up and everything. So the analogy is the garden. What we're doing now is we're gathering all this vocabulary. We're gathering all this information. We're trying to understand the human condition, but we're also trying to understand the system by which we can transcend the limits of our human condition to be able to go to our full potential as a enlightened holy being, as a bodhisattva. So this is the practical wisdom of being able to do that, of get that together. So we sign up for some classes, we take the classes, we get some books, we do some studying, we develop a daily practice and so on like that. This is all part of that wisdom. So that's the second of the 8 great things of being perfection of a human being. So the third thing is that we begin to see transformation. We begin to see that we planted the seeds, we've watered the ground, and the soil has been fertilized and so on. And before too long, we begin to see the sprouts starting to come up. And we're seeing the transformation of the land. We're seeing the transformation of this garden and so on. Within ourselves, as we're developing the system for spiritual investigation, we begin to see that we get more relaxed, that we become more happy, that we begin to understand the things that upset us and the causes of why they upset us and what it is that we can do to overcome those upsets that we have. This is what we just spent time talking about, the 5 poisons and the 5 antidotes, and then how it is that we're developing our awareness of all that and how it is that we plan for all of that. So this is the transformation, seeing the way that our life has transforms into more understanding, more awareness, more awakening, more happiness, etc. The next of those things is now we develop a devotion that we have to keep at this. Wow, I'm seeing the results. This really does work. I'm seeing the fruit come up. I'm seeing the food, the vegetables coming up in our garden analogy, but I'm also seeing that I'm changing, and I really like the changes that I'm making for myself. I like myself better. Other people are responding to me better, and life is feeling like a better thing for me. So I want to be devoted to this practice. I want to be devoted to the garden. I want to be devoted to my transformation and to all this that I'm doing to be able to continue this growth, this stabilization of my spirituality. So devotion is the 4th of these 8 great perfections of being a human being, a bodhisattva. So now the 5th thing is compassion, because sometimes we have suffering. Sometimes as a gardener, we've got to go out every day and we've got to be doing work. We've got to go pick the weeds and we have to, continue to take care of the land. And sometimes it's raining. Sometimes it's hot. Sometimes, we our schedule has gotten in the way and we've got to do other things, but we've got to do this. So we have to have compassion for ourselves. We have to have compassion for the garden to go out and to continue to do this. So the compassion is a realization that if we don't do this, the garden's going to get overgrown. The weeds are going to take over and very quickly, and everything is going to be spoiled. In our spirituality, we have compassion for ourselves because I really want to do these things. I really want to do these studies. I really want to read these things. I really want to attend these classes and read these books and meditate and so on. But I got all these other things going on that are very important to me too. So we have compassion for ourselves to be able to see, oh yes, we have this suffering that we're not doing what we want to do, but we have to find ways to manage how our time and our energy, how we can do those things. So this compassion is recognizing that we have this suffering, but also actualizing a degree of wisdom as to how we can put this together. What is our mindfulness in being able to rearrange our schedules to make sure that we get to do all the things that we deem now to be important, including now this spiritual endeavor. So that's the 5th of the perfections. The 6th one is the wisdom. Now, this wisdom is a wisdom that is not just a practical wisdom, but it is a wisdom that is based on some experiences that we've had. Because now we, in terms of the garden, now we are seeing that the plants are coming up, the fruit is coming up. Maybe we have to put stakes in the ground and we have to make sure that the things don't fall over and so on. And maybe we need to sacrifice a few of the plants to make room for the other plants to grow and so on. So there's an understanding of what we want to have happen what the result is going to be to fill up our baskets full of fruit and vegetable and so on. So we have this vision of what that is. So we have to apply some wisdom for that. In our spirituality, it's that we need to be able to grow. We need to be able to continue to grow. And as we do that, we find that certain things have to give way. Certain things have to change. We have to allow ourselves to let some things go in order that we have time, in order that we have the energy and the resources to develop the spirituality in our lives. So with that comes the wisdom of the experiences that we have as a result of that. So if we are doing our meditation, let's say we start off with a half an hour practice in the mornings, and we're doing this for some time, and it's very good, but and we're starting to have some really good feelings, and sometimes maybe we're able to do that for an hour, maybe on the weekend. We don't have to run off to work or go to school, so we can spend a little bit extra time. And when we do that, we find, wow, something happened I hadn't experienced with that extra time that I was able to apply to my practice. Wow, I want to do that more. And you begin to value that in such a way that you say, oh, wow, this wisdom that I'm getting from that is more important than the mundane stuff that I'm willing now to give up, or I'm ready to move, or I'm going to modify it in some way. So there's a practical knowledge, but there is this ultimate knowledge of wisdom that we're beginning to have insights. We're beginning to have transformative glimpses of what this spirituality is. So we include that into now our path of perfections. This is the sixth. This is the wisdom that is beyond just the knowledge of the practical. It is now the knowledge of the spiritual, of the wisdom. So that's the sixth. The seventh of the human perfection is the perfection of Dharma power. So this Dharma power, this when we say Dharma, we're talking about the teachings of the Buddha. So in the spiritual sense, this is what we're learning, is this Dharma teaching. Everything we're learning in Buddhism is about the Dharma path to enlightenment. In terms of the gardener, this power would be, oh, here is the fruit. Here is the fruition of my work. Here are the plants. Here are the food, the vegetables, the fruit, and so on. And I'm able to eat it. I'm able to share it with my family and friends, and so on. So I'm seeing that this gives me great power to be able to eat this, consume this, and sustain my body and my life, and so on. So there's power from that. Spiritual, on the spiritual side, this power, this Dharma power now, we're seeing is so transformative, and so that our life is changing, that our whole outlook on life is changing, that the way that we value things is changing. So this Dharma power is really becoming so dynamic in everything that we do, and it becomes an important element in everything that we do. It becomes part of the equation of how we decide how we're going to live our lives and so on, what our lifestyle is going to be. It now includes this Dharma, these Dharma teachings, and the changes that come from that. So that is the seventh of these eight great powers, or these eight great perfections. Now, the eighth one is the purification. This is the purification, because what we are going through, as a gardener, we're purifying, how we take care of the garden. We're learning what works and what doesn't work, and we start moving away from maybe the fertilizers that we're doing some harm, and we're using natural fertilizers. We're doing more things. We're purifying our technique as to how to grow this garden. In the spiritual sense, now we are purifying the things that we have developed to know. In the beginning, everything is like a coarse understanding, a rough understanding, an outer understanding. But there is also an inner understanding. And as we go through that inner understanding, as we delve into that, we begin to purify our misconceptions that we're allowed to work, be motivation for us in the outer point of view. But in the inner point of view, maybe they're not quite right yet. It's not they have some vagarities to it, or they have some confusions to it. So now we're purifying the inner view of those thoughts, of those concepts, of those practices, and so on. And what that gives us, what that allows us to do, is to have inner experiences, or excuse me, secret experiences. There's outer, there's inner, and then there's secret. These secret are the things that these experiences that we're having that may be very difficult for us to be able to explain to ourselves, much less to anybody else. But we need to be able to understand those. So what we do is we take on teachers, we trust our teachers, we trust our Dharma brothers and sisters, and we purify our understandings, our experiences by having conversations with them. So it's purifying what these experiences are. And we're trying to protect ourselves from any arrogance that may come as a result of this. Because as we develop our spirituality, it's very easy for us to develop a spiritual pride. And pride is a big negative thing. We talked about that last time. So we don't want to develop a spiritual pride. We want to remain humble, have humility in the midst of this whole process. So this purification is that element of the human perfection doing this. So these 8 great perfections that are identified by these 8 great bodhisattvas. So we're not going to go into the detail of the names of those bodhisattvas at this time right now, but we are going to talk about one of them, who is Manjushri. And we've already been introduced to Manjushri in the weeks before. And Manjushri is the bodhisattva of that wisdom that was in category number 6, was the wisdom, the practical wisdom, along with this spiritual wisdom, if you will, the spiritual realization wisdom, together, coming together, and seeing that there is a practicality to being a human being that leads us to the ability to be able to have this spiritual experience and so on. So we're very fortunate to have this life. We're very fortunate to have this body and this intellect, because that's the mechanism that allows us to be able to do all this. But then we don't stop with that. We move into what is those experiences? What is that wisdom? And how do we cultivate that even more? So the practice of these deities, the practice of these bodhisattvas, these meditational deities, we call them meditational deities, because they're not real existent beings in the same way we might think of ourselves for the time being. We'll talk about that. But they are meditational deities that are in our heart center, but we also have to have an intellectualization of what they are, who they are, what they represent, and so on. So this is where the intellect and the spirit are coming together and so on. So we start with Manjushri to develop this wisdom. Does anybody have any comments or questions about anything that I just spoke about?
I'm so sorry. Can you repeat the second great perfection? I missed the actual name of it.
Yes, that was the practical wisdom. The practical wisdom, the practical knowledge.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is this making sense to you, Faza? Faza,
Yes.
excuse me. Yes.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's making a lot of sense. I know number six was also wisdom, but there are two different types of wisdoms. I assume you said the first one was practical wisdom, and the sixth one,
Is
how would
practical
that nature?
wisdom together with the spiritual wisdom that we're opening
Mhm.
ourselves up to, that we begin to recognize.
Okay,
We see how
that
they
makes
are
sense.
interconnected at this point.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Hey
welcome.
Lance, to
Yes.
your point, I'm just going to make a quick anecdote to your point earlier about the shifts I've made in my life over the last couple of years since I've known you, and you've come into my dharma. You were right about it took me a while to see what was happening, but I actually this is my priority now. I'm Netflix is off my Monday night binge, and it just happened slowly where all of a sudden my soul craved. I get excited knowing I get to be here, right? And that was a change that happened subtly, and I felt it most powerfully in the last several months where I'm eager, like my soul is like waiting to come to this group and be present with everyone. So I attesting to what you just said, it was a slow process, and now I recognize what's happened through your words. I connect those dots now.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. And that's a blessing for us all, because we're seeing that we're all interconnected. And when somebody's light goes on, it turns on a light for all of us. So it's the wonderful, and that's the continuum that we're all part of. We're part of this continuum, and we'll talk more about that later on. Okay. Karina, Gavin, do you have any comments or questions?
I do have a question. Could you explain, in your opinion, Dharma?
I'm sorry, in my type of Dharma?
No, could you explain what Dharma is?
Or what Dharma is?
Correct.
Dharma literally is a pathway. It's a Sanskrit word that means pathway. And there's many dharmas. There's a pathway to become a lawyer. There's a pathway to become a carpenter. There's a pathway to be a parent. There's a pathway to build a house. There's many different dharmas, that we follow and so on.
Yes.
But the Buddha Dharma with a capital D, is the pathway to enlightenment.
Okay.
So when the Buddha attained enlightenment, and we're going to talk about this in a couple of weeks, I'm going to tell you the story of the Buddha. And so when he attained enlightenment, it blew his mind. His mind was blown, and who would believe this? He's thinking to himself, how do I explain this? So for the next several weeks, he's pacing up and down and he's trying to figure out how he's going to explain this epiphany that he's had that has just blown, his intellectual mind away and so on. How am I going to do this? Who would believe this? And he realizes that there's no way to be able to do that you can explain what enlightenment is. It's something that we each have to engage in and have the experience for ourselves. So what he was able to teach was his pathway, his dharma, to attain that enlightenment. So it becomes the speech of the Buddha. This is the teaching of the Buddha, is this dharma, how to attain enlightenment. So we call it stages of the path. So that's what we're learning about here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I kind of, once before you said that, I would interpret it like Dharma points, like brownie points, and then karma points. What could an individual do to develop negative or positive future would be like Dharma. So I'm getting a better explanation, and I appreciate your thoroughness on that.
So to put it in other words, it's the intellectualization of the process to achieve liberation or enlightenment or Buddhahood. Those three words are interconnected with each other, or the same thing. And
Okay.
coincidentally, it's the same as is practiced or discovered in other traditions. Buddhism is not exclusive. In other words, the Christ is another way of experiencing this. In Judaism, there's a similar way in which it's explained. In Hinduism, there's a similar way. In Islam, there's a similar way. In Taoism, all these great traditions are all talking about this same thing, this true nature that we have. And each of these traditions, each of these cultures have their vocabulary, have their way of explaining it, and so on. So it's not exclusive. But in Buddhism, it is very, very well articulated. And there's lots and lots of books, there's lots and lots of teachers to be able to support that. And so because of that, it becomes very meaningful. And there's a great thirst to be able to understand this around the world. So this is one reason why Buddhism is becoming popular. And it's becoming popular with older folks. It's becoming popular with more mature folks, not just in age, but just in their evolution of who they are, because it removes the mysteries. It doesn't tell us, oh, we have to believe in this magical thing that happens. No, it's pulling back the curtain and saying that's all within yourself. And you have to open yourself up to making those things happen. You are responsible for your suffering, and you're responsible for your for your happiness, and anything in between.
Thank you, Lance.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Katie or Alex, if you have anything that you want to add to that, you're welcome to.
Sure, Lance. I just want to say I was really happy when I heard you say we were going to be doing Manjushri tonight, because in Buddhism, I'm always drawing strongly towards the compassion side of things. And that's very good, of course, but I know that sometimes I neglect the wisdom. So it's good to have these reminders that I should be more rounded. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Karina, did you want to say anything? Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay, very good. I was seeing you leaning in. I was Alex?
Yeah, I just want to second somebody said that it comes together gradually, and same it was for me as well. And I really like your analogy with the garden and how we apply our perfections to finally reap the fruits from the gardens and vegetables. um, so yeah, and it is to me it is same in science. To me, same as in art. And I just want to say that like going through this process of spiritual training, and it I think it also helps in other aspects of life, because I found that that's also like helps us also to grow professionally or become better parents and better family members and so on and so forth.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so if I can now, I'm going to screen share the Manjushri. With any luck. Oh. There we go. Okay. So now you should be familiar with this. We talked about this for a couple of weeks. This is Manjushri. Now, this is a artistic representation of ourselves, of this particular aspect of ourselves that we call Manjushri, this Bodhisattva, this holy enlightened being of wisdom. So, without going into a lot of detail that we've already been to before, he's got a golden body which represents that it's untarnished. It can't be changed. The gold will always remain gold, and that he has in his left hand he has a lotus flower. The lotus flower represents purity, and on the blossom of the lotus flower is a textbook, is a wisdom textbook. So he's learning this from the teachings, the Buddha Dharma, learning this from experience, practical, and also that which has been experienced through meditation experience and so on, and the systems by which helps to bring both of these, the practical to fruition as well as the spiritual to fruition. So this is coming into the left. We're receiving this. This is coming into the left. And then that wisdom comes into our heart and goes round our heart. And then it comes out through the right. The right is what we are doing for the benefit of other beings, how we are helping ourselves and other beings. It's coming out. And in his right hand, he's holding this flaming sword of wisdom that is cutting through confusion, that is cutting through duality, that is cutting through our ordinary humanness that is deluding us, our ignorance and so on, cutting through all those emotions. So these are the main points of Manjushri, what he represents through this illustration here. So if anybody has a question or comment while I'm going on, just turn your microphone on and come on in. So here now we are meditating on all-pervading emptiness. All this comes out of this emptiness of this phenomenal nature. And we'll talk more about this phenomenal nature and its emptiness later on. But the point is that all this is just fabricated. All this is all relative. None of it is absolute. Nothing is permanent. All this that we see is all subject to change and will change over time. Our body will die. The things that we have around us in our rooms right now, we leave them outside, they're going to change. Everything changes. So this all-pervading emptiness, this all-pervading, all this that is that we live in. So here it says, Om Shunyata Jana Bajra Atmako Sobhava Atmako Koham. It says, my body, speech, and mind is the indestructible nature of emptiness wisdom. My body, speech, and mind is the indestructible nature of emptiness wisdom. So my body, my physical body, my intellectual body, but my spiritual mind. So now we're talking about our spiritual body, our spiritual speech, our spiritual intellectual mind, and our spiritual mind, our true nature, is the indestructible nature of emptiness wisdom. So we'll talk a lot more about this. So now we're visualizing that from the all-pervading emptiness, from this big bang of everything coming from this big bang, if I can use that illustration, from this now comes all this appearance, all this stuff, this all-pervading emptiness. A many-colored lotus appears, and on the lotus are moon and sun discs, surrounded by orange-colored mum syllable, the nature of my own awareness wisdom. So this lotus, which is the purity, the sun disc is the wisdom disc. And on top of that is the moon disc, which is the compassion. Wisdom and compassion are two sides of the same hand. They come together. There's always wisdom with compassion. There's always compassion with wisdom. Now, it can be suppressed, but it's there. And it's our job as being on the Dharma path is to recognize that and to allow them both to become open, that we become awakened to these realities of what this nature is, what nature is. So it says surrounded by an orange-colored mum syllable. So this mum, this syllable, is we talked about it a little bit last week. Is this harmonious speech, this harmonious intellectualization of what all this is, that's bringing it all together. This is the speech of Manjushri. Manjushri is bringing together that relative practical wisdom, knowledge, together with the spiritual ultimate knowledge, this wisdom that comes from that. So this orange-colored mum syllable, the nature of my own awareness wisdom. The luminous symbol radiates colored light in all directions. It is offered to all the Buddhas and purifies all obscurations in the 6 realms. So we're visualizing, so I'm going to skip ahead and come back to this. So here, this is the mum syllable. You can see this mum syllable. So this is a Sanskrit syllable. The Buddha taught in Sanskrit. That's why we're learning these things in Sanskrit, because there's no more succinct way to be able to explain these things than in the original language in which it was produced. So this mum syllable, this is harmonious speech of bringing together the relative and the ultimate. So from this, light is coming out.
Lance, sorry to interrupt.
That's all right.
Mum, does it translate to harmonious speech or does it represent harmonious speech?
It symbolizes harmonious speech.
Okay, thank
It
you.
represents it, yes. So it's radiating light in all directions. It's offered to all the Buddhas and purifies all obscurations in the 6 realms. The light returns and is absorbed into the syllables, and I become Manjushri, brilliantly golden in color. So this is a lot right here. Well, it's hard to explain in the little bit of time that we have left, but basically here is this jewel, this diamond jewel that we have in our heart center. This is our true nature. This is our Buddha nature, what we call Buddha nature, or the Christ, or God, whatever you want to call it. And it has all these aspects. So from this Manjushri aspect is coming out this light that is then going to all these other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And this light, this jewel, is made up of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the 4 immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So this light is going to all them, and then from them, it's coming back into this diamond. It's coming back into this syllable, this seed syllable of mum. So it's being energized. It's going out and then it's coming back in. So it's very dynamic. It's very powerful. This is happening within our heart. And we begin to recognize it through our meditation, through our experiences. So it is offered to all the Buddhas and purifies all obscurations in the 6 realms. The light returns and absorbed into the syllables. I become Manjushri, brilliantly colored gold. So I become. So this is in my heart. I now become the deity. I become Manjushri. Now, of course, it's not literal. It is figurative, but within myself, I can feel this dynamism. I can feel this power within myself, this transformation, this purification. With 1 face and 2 arms, my right hand raises the wisdom sword above my left shoulder, above my shoulder, and my left hand is holding the flower with the book on it that we talked about. Okay. So the blossoms on my left. The lotus is in, on the lotus is 100,000 verse Prajnaparamita text. So that book that is in that flower is called the Prajnaparamita text. And what this means is this is the perfection of wisdom text. So very, very powerful. We'll talk about that at some point. If you've ever heard of the Heart Sutra, the Heart Sutra is the very concise part of the Prajnaparamita. So I am wearing a 5-pointed crown adorned with a blue-black top knot, and I am cloaked in silken robes and precious ornaments. I am seated in the Vajra position and smiling countenance. I radiate the glorious signs of the Buddhas. All the 3 places are white, red, and blue colored light. So let me go back to this. So now, as I said, we are visualizing that at our heart center, that within us is Manjushri. So he's wearing this crown, and this crown represents all the wisdom Buddhas, and he's sitting on this purity of the lotus flower. He's sitting on the sun disk and the moon disk, the yellow sun disk and the white moon disk of wisdom and compassion. So all this is happening within ourselves. So all 3, so the 3 special places is our body, our speech, and our mind. So when we close, our dedications at the end of our sessions, we are in the body, speech, and mind. So this is the body, speech, and mind of Manjushri, who is now within us, that we are Manjushri. Om Ahung is Om Ahung. So we'll come back to more of that in a minute. Light radiates from the syllables, inviting the wisdom deities who dissolve inseparably into me with the syllables Za Hong Bam Ho. So this is, we are connecting, we are linking ourselves to the deities, we are tying ourselves up with the deities, we are chaining ourselves up with the deities, and we are rejoicing that we are now inseparable with those deities. So we'll come back to that another time with more detail. So again, these 3 colored lights radiate. So it's the white light of the body, the red light of the speech, and the blue light of the heart, of the mind, the heart mind. So now I offer flowers, incense, light, scented water, nourishing cakes, and music to them. And I request the empowerment to be able to recognize all this and to practice this. So this is Om Sar Tathagata Abhishenkanta Tumam. Abhikensha Tumam. Om, all the Tathagatas, all the Buddhas, please grant me the enlightenment, the empowerment, Mom, to do it now. For this harmonious speech. Well, Mom is that I become this deity. So then by this request, it says, I am empowered by the Buddhas who pour the vase nectar on the crown of my head, filling my whole body with nectar and purifying all the obscurations. Purifying all the obscurations. The nectar overflows at the crown of my head, becoming Buddha Varanchana. The Buddhas of the empowerment then dissolve into me. So there's a ceremony that we have that is called the empowerment ceremony, and the lamas, the teachers, the Tibetan teachers or the great teachers, they don't have to be Tibetan per se, but they are authentic teachers who will bestow this empowerment, who go through much greater detail in every aspect of this than I'm doing right now. This is just an introduction for your benefit. So they will bestow the empowerment, and they will go through this and explain more. So now we come to this part here where we're making these offerings. We're making these offerings of drinking water, of washing water, of flowers, of excuse me, of flowers, of incense, of light, and of scented water, perfume, and of food, and of music. So we're treating these deities that are in our heart center, we're regarding them as guests in our heart center. So this comes out of the ancient tradition of India, where people would be coming to your home, family, friends, for events and so on, and they would be having to cross over many, many fields, walking miles to get to your home. And of course, nothing was paved. It was all dusty. It's all hot. So when they come into your home, the first thing that you offer them is drinking water. That's argam. So hear this word argam. And then the second thing you offer them is washing water, to wash their feet, to wash their face and hands. That's padyam. Then we offer them flowers. When we offer flowers, it brings a smile to your face and it brings a smile to their face. So we offer flowers. The next thing we offer is incense, dupam. And this incense keeps away negativity. It brightens up the area for us by keeping away evil beings, evil doers, evil thoughts, confusion, and so on. Then the next thing we offer is light, aloke. So we're going inside the home, and it may be during the middle of the day, but still it's a little bit darker inside. So we're lighting a candle or we're lighting a butter lamp to lighten the darkness. And then gandhe is the scented water, the perfume. As we put it on our body, it evaporates very quickly and it has a cooling effect because it's hot and so on, sticky. So we put that on and it cools us down. It makes us feel better. And then nuideya is food. So we're offering food. So we're having a meal. We're having a party. And then the climax of the party is shabda, is the music. Now we're playing instruments and we're singing, we're chanting. Maybe there's some dance that we are doing and so on like that. So we're offering that to the deities. It comes from the tradition of offering this to friends and family who are coming to visit us, but now we're offering this to the deities that are within ourselves. So all this is developing a mindfulness of our interconnectedness with these deities, with these beings that we talk about that are in this heart, indestructible jewel at our heart. So this here we say, Om Manjushri, Jnana Sattva. So Om is the enlightened body, speech, and mind of Manjushri, the wisdom being. Jnana means wisdom. Sattva is that holy being. Bajra means indestructible. So the enlightened body, speech, and mind of the indestructible wisdom, holy being, Manjushri. Can you see this first sentence up here at the top that my cursor is pointing at? And then it says, I offer drinking water, washing water, flowers, incense, light, scented water, food, and music. So that's each of these lines here is making those particular offerings. And then it says, so we make the offering, then it says, Sarva Puja Mega Samudra Saparana Samaye Hung. So it says, to purify my sacred vow to manifest wisdom. So I'm making these offerings to purify my sacred vow to manifest wisdom. But this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to understand this more than just practical wisdom, the spiritual wisdom. So that's what these offerings are for. So we would recite that. Then we come to the praise. So we've recited this before, and now maybe it's going to make a little bit more sense to you. Now we say, his wisdom is brilliant like the sun. So now his wisdom is our wisdom. This is what we're waking up to, that Manjushri is within ourselves. So we're viewing ourselves to become as Manjushri. So this is the potential. We have this potential to be the Buddha, to be the Bodhisattva within ourselves. So this wisdom is brilliant like the sun, free of the clouds of the two veils. The two veils are the emotions that we have that confuse us. We talked about that the past couple of weeks, and the mental misconceptions, the ideas that we have learned over time through our lifetime that we hold on to that may be totally wrong. They may have some insight, they may be some wisdom there, but the point is they can be confusions if we don't totally understand them. So the free of the clouds of the two veils of the emotions and the mental misconceptions, and perceives the various types of knowledge in their true nature. So the practical knowledge and the spiritual knowledge, the ultimate knowledge. For this reason, he holds the wisdom text at his heart. So this is why he's holding that, to be able to learn from that, to be able to develop that knowledge, to cultivate that knowledge, that wisdom. He has compassion for all beings who suffer from the darkness of ignorance in the prison of samsara, as a father for an only son. So this prison of samsara is our ocean of suffering. This life that we live that is full of confusion and everything. It's not to say that we don't have happiness. It's not to say that we don't have good times and so on like that. And we're very fortunate people where we live, who we are, the way we were born, the educations we've had, the opportunities that we have. But there are so many other human beings on this planet who can't even imagine of what our lifestyle is and what this is. So we have compassion for them. Manjushri has compassion for them, and we have to cultivate our compassion for them who suffer from this darkness of ignorance in this prison of samsara, this prison of delusion and confusion, that this ocean of suffering is real, and that it's everything that we want it to be. There is bliss that is beyond this, and we need to be able to recognize that, and that's what our goal is. So then it says, like a thunderclap, as quickly as a thunderclap, he awakens from those who are sleeping in ignorance and loosens the chain of karma through the 60 branches of a harmonious speech. So just like that, through our meditation, through our contemplations, through our practices, all of a sudden there can be this epiphany, there can be this lightning, like this thunderclap, that all of a sudden just illuminates all this confusion and loosens the chain of karma through the 60 branches of harmonious speech. So what that means is that there's many different ways in which this is all expressed. And we begin to recognize all these different methods and seeing them all as the same method, all is the same. Whether it's Buddhism, whether it's Christianity, whatever language they're using, all these references are the same. They're speaking of the same thing at this pure essence level. He wields the wisdom sword to cut the seedling of suffering and to dispel the darkness of confusion. So he's cutting through all the delusions, all the dualistic nature, all the misconceptions, all the emotions, cutting through all of this. In the Bodhisattva form, the holy enlightened being form, he is pure from beginningless time. So this is a pure human being, so pure, you see, that he's maintained this purity for the benefit of ordinary human beings, so that they have an example of what it is to become a Buddha. So this is something more that we talk about. His beginningless time, fully accomplished in the 10 levels. The 10 levels are the 10 levels of becoming a holy enlightened being, of becoming a bodhisattva, and perfect in the body of all knowledge. So we've talked about that. I dedicate you, Manjushri, I supplicate you, Manjushri, adorned by the 112 signs of a Buddha to dispel the darkness of my ignorance. So this supplication, this Manjushri within myself, and the 112 signs, there are 32 major signs of a Buddha and 80 minor marks of a Buddha. So these are talking about physical characteristics, but it's also talking about like personality characteristics and activity characteristics and so on. So that we become the embodiment of that. That we remove the blockages, we remove the confusions, that we become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. So these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are the enlightened ones. So that's the long praise. The short praise is this. You who are the perfect youthful body, whose flame of wisdom blazes, and dispel the darkness of worldly ignorance, I prostrate before you and praise you, Manjushri. So here is where we realize that there is this practical knowledge, but that practical knowledge, can be steeped in a delusion, can be steeped in an ignorance of not realizing that it is just partial, that it is not the whole wisdom, that is not the whole knowledge, the whole of reality that we're opening ourselves up to. So I prostrate before you and praise you, Manjushri, who is within myself. That's the short praise. And now we set about to purify our confusions, to develop that one-pointed mindfulness, to recognize our Manjushri Bodhisattva nature. So this is the mantra visualization here. It says that the heart chakra is a sun disk on which stands the mum syllable, harmonious speech, surrounded by the mantra circling clockwise. So the mantra of Manjushri. And so it's clockwise in golden light. Light radiates from the mantra, invoking all the blessings and energies of all the Buddhas, which dissolve into the mum syllable. So this is in the center of that diamond that we talked about. Again, light radiates and transforms the outer universe into the superb Pure Land and purifies all the obscurations of sentient beings. The superb Pure Land and purifies all the obscurations of sentient beings, all the blockages of sentient beings, who are then transformed into Manjushri, and all are reciting the mantra together. The light returns to the seed syllable. So I'm just going to open this up again. So I want to make the point. What we are doing, everything that we're doing, is for the benefit of the enlightenment of other beings. We are doing it for ourselves through doing it for others. If we were to selfishly do this just for ourselves, would not have the benefit of enlightenment, would not have the result of enlightenment. There would be arrogance, there would be hatred, there would be division between us and others because we regard them as us and others, rather than that we are all the same. If I can be happy, I can make them happy. If they are happy, they can make me happy, and you and everybody else. If they are sad, they can make us sad. If we are sad, we can make them sad. So we have to recognize that we are all interconnected. So this is the inseparability. And the commonality of this inseparability is our spirituality. If our commonality is our intellectualism, that's what we've got now. That's where all the confusion is in the world. This intellectualism, that this nation is better than that nation, that this race is better than that race over here, that religion is better than this religion. All these separations, which are intellectual fabrications. But in spirituality, it's all the same. And that's our liberation. That's what we're trying to get to liberate ourselves from all these confusions and so on. So Manjushri is cutting through, is showing us how to do this, and we become Manjushri as we become these other great bodhisattvas and other enlightened beings. And the more that we learn about them, the more that we realize, oh yes, I understand now how this works, how I can do this, how I can perfect myself as a human being. So we go back. Okay, so now here is a line drawing to remember Manjushri, and here is the mantra. So this mantra, Om Vagishva Mum. So Om, the body, speech, and mind. I am the Lord of speech. I am the Lord of intellectualization. I am the Lord of spirituality articulation through my harmonious speech, Mum. So this Mum is in the center of this mantra. And this mantra is going around in a clockwise direction. Om Swagi Shvavi Mum. Om Wagi Shva. So if we can take our right hand and we can, our thumb and little finger is like the body. And our three fingers here, or rather is like the mum, and our three fingers are like the body, speech, and mind that's going around. And that light from those syllables now is going out to all sentient beings, where this golden light is going out from your heart to all beings, making all beings Manjushri. The way in which we overcome this separation is recognizing everyone is the same. So everyone becomes Manjushri along with us. So that they may not realize it. They all have the potential, just like we have the potential. But as we sit on this cushion and develop this, we are getting closer and closer and closer to it. And now we're radiating it through this mantra to all other beings. So now we recite this mantra. If you have beads, you can, the beads allow us to keep track of our recitation. So we don't want to do a short recitation. We want to do a long recitation. So we'll continue this now. So do I need to put the book back up so you can see the mantra? Okay. So Om Vagishva Mum. So there's several different melodies that we'll use. Om Vagishva Mum, 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 Om Vagishva Mum. Om Vagishva Mum, 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 Om Vagishva Mum. Om Vagishva Mum, 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 Om Vagishva Mum. Om Vagishva Mum, 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 Om Vagishva Mum. Om Vagishva Mum, Om Vagishva Mum, Om Vagishva Mum, Om Vagishva Mum, Om Wagishvarimam, 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 Om Wagishvarimam. So now we go back to the text. So now we perform what's called the dissolution. This is where all this that we have generated, all this visualization that we have generated, now is being dissolved into the mum's syllable, and then rising up from the mum's syllable and dissolving into that emptiness, into that space. So this is the dissolution. It says the outer universe dissolves into the light. So everything that we know as the universe dissolves into light, which is absorbed into myself. So the whole universe comes into me, comes into my heart center. And then I dissolve into the mum's syllable, which dissolves from the bottom to the top nada. To the top of this is a flame. There's a little fire. This top nada, and gradually becomes emptiness. That little flame dissolves into the emptiness. I meditate into the bliss of non-duality of subject and object. So this is the meditation. So I'm going to come back here so you can look at this. So close your eyes. It helps to close your eyes. Sit in the 7-point posture of Varanchana. Your back is straight. Sit on the edge of your chair. If you're on a chair, if you're on a cushion, sit on the cushion. If your legs crossed, that is good. If your legs are on a chair and you need to have both feet on the floor, that's fine. If you can cross your ankles, that's good. Your left hand and your right hand, your left hand is palm up, your right hand is lying in your left hand and the thumb's touching 4 inches below your navel. And your shoulders are back. Shoulders aren't up, but they're back. And when you do that, it brings your hands right into your navel, into your abdomen. And then your head is just a little bit forward, your chin is just a little bit down, your neck is just a little bit forward, and your eyes can be open or closed. In the beginning, it's best to close your eyes, less distractions. But if you wish to open up your eyes, just look a gaze down in the direction of your nose, 4 or 5 feet in front of you. Just a gaze, not staring at anything, not thinking about what you're looking at. Just a gaze. Just relax. Your eyes can be mostly closed, where you completely close your eyes. And last, your tongue is on the roof of your mouth behind your front teeth. And when we breathe in through both nostrils, and we bring the air all the way down to our abdomen, down to our navel. We keep our chest flat. We're not extending the chest. We're not breathing from the chest. We're breathing from our abdomen, from our diaphragm, pulling air into our lungs. We hold the breath, and then we expel the breath. We exhale by squeezing the abdomen, pushes against the diaphragm, pushes against the lungs, and forces all that stale, negative, dark air out, either through our 2 nostrils or through our mouth. So if our mouth is open, we can keep it closed. But if we're breathing in like that through our mouth would get dry. But if we keep our tongue on the roof of our mouth like that, it'll keep our mouth moist. So we're breathing in, holding it, exhaling, and then holding that. And we begin with that, watching the breath, and we visualize all the light from all the phenomenal nature comes into our center, and from that light comes into the into the mum syllable. The mum syllable dissolves from the bottom up to a little flame that dissolves into the emptiness, dissolves into the shunyata. If that becomes tiresome, you want to visualize the breathing, you can do that. So now we're going to do this. So we're going to meditate for 5 minutes. So sit in the posture. Take a deep breath with both nostrils. Expand the belly. It pulls down the diaphragm, pulling air into the lungs, and hold that breath. Exhale, both nostrils, squeeze the diaphragm by pushing against with the belly. Force all that stale negative air out and hold that breath. Breathe in pure, clean, clear air. Hold it. Exhale, stale, negative, dark air. Hold it. Breathe in. Exhale. Breathe in. Exhale. Breathe in. Exhale. Continue to stay in this body position. Breathe at your own pace. Visualize the dissolution of the light, dissolving into the mum syllable, dissolving into the emptiness. Or watch your breath. Your mind wanders. Just bring it back to the visualization of the light or watching the breath. Just gently bring your mindfulness back to those two. Let the thoughts go. Take a deep breath and hold it. Exhale and hold it. Relax, open your eyes, breathe normal. Okay. So now we come to the dissolution. So now it says, or rather the dedication. So now it says, now that we have come out of the meditation, it says, then once again, I assume the form of Manjushri. Because now we just liberated into the emptiness, into the space. So now we come back into our regular consciousness, but we take on the form, remembering, realizing ourselves as Manjushri. And now we do the dedication. It says, by the light of your wisdom, compassionate one, Manjushri, may the darkness of ignorance in my mind be dispelled. To realize all the sutras and commentaries, please grant me the power of radiant wisdom. So all the sutras, all the teachings of the Buddhas and the great masters and their commentaries, their experiences of the practices of the Dharma. Whenever I want to see you or want you to clarify my confusions, Lord Manjushri Goka, the voice of the Manjushri, may I have a clear vision of you without hindrance. So whenever I am confused, whenever I'm not unclear, may I invoke Manjushri. May I do this practice to clear away the confusions, to be able to recognize the reality of the pure nature. May I have a clear vision of you without hindrance. you, Manjushri, have performed great deeds to the furthest limit of the 10 directions for the benefit of all sentient beings. May I and others perform the same activities. So you, Manjushri, have performed the great deeds to the furthest limit of the 10 directions. The 10 directions are the four positions of the compass: east, south, west, and north, and then the intermediate directions: southeast, southwest, northwest, southeast, and then up and down. So all beings everywhere in all directions, may they all have the same activities. May they all become Manjushri. So now is the Bodhicitta prayer. It says, Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. So we recite that again. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. One more time. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. Then, by the blessings of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by the blessings of the innate truth of Dharma, and by the blessings of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtue as pure as white snow of the mountains, may the teachings of Ratna Shri flourish in the 10 directions and dispel the ignorance of all sentient beings, that they will at last achieve the Buddha's perfection of wisdom. Om Ahong, Om Ahong. So these, the Buddha who attained the three kayas, the Dharmakaya, the Samogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya, these we'll talk about in weeks to come. So that is the Manjushri practice. So I hope that was helpful in being able to recognize how we are transforming ourselves into the realization that we are these deities. Now we have these ideas that I'm a student, I'm a father, I'm a mother, I'm a whatever job I have, I'm a teacher, I work in an office. These are all the things that we identify with. But we're much more than all of that. We are these spiritual beings. Then these spiritual beings then engage in these jobs, in these things, being a bodhisattva father, being a bodhisattva mother or brother or sister, being a bodhisattva carpenter, being a bodhisattva teacher, whatever it is, we're doing it now with bodhicitta, the holy enlightened mind. So our whole view of the world turns around, and that we become inseparable from that spirituality, from the connection with all beings in that way.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. Thank you. Thank you, Lance.
Welcome. Thank you, Alex, for being here. Does anybody have an aversion or have a concern that these kind of visualizations are something that you don't want to take part in for some reason? Some people feel that there's difficulty in seeing themselves as these deities.
Lance, I think this, since I've been with you a couple cycles, I think the modifications you made to this cycle actually have strengthened some connection for me. Like you talk about it and then we do the experiential component. And then I think that allows people who are just exploring to decide whether that works for them or not. But that I think that's necessary in effective teaching. So I like how powerful it is right now with the discussion and then the experiential.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, we're always tweaking the way in which we present this. You know, we have a very limited time. We only have 2 hours, you know, once a week. So it's very difficult to figure out what's the best way to inspire people, to communicate what we're trying to do. Do you think that it's something that, do you recognize that there's a value here to develop some kind of a personal relationship with this, some kind of a personal practice with this? Theresa, what do you think about that?
Yes, I mean, the whole point of me engaging in classes like this and practices like this and other types of meditation and just the understanding of Buddhism in general is all for the purpose of my personal practice, and how my karma plays out in the world. And hopefully I can leave a better footprint in this life. So this is all dedicated to my personal practice. I did have a question about the body, speech, and mind. When you come down to mind, you come down to the heart. So is the heart part of the mind in practice,
Yes.
in this philosophy?
The little mind is the intellect. The big mind is the spiritual mind in the heart center.
Mm-hmm.
When we feel love, where do we feel it? Are we feeling it in our heart, or are we feeling it up here in our brain? And when we get emotional, is the emotions developed here in the mind, in the little mind, and it blocks up the heart? So this is the big mind. What we're trying to do is to open up the channels between the little mind and the big mind, so that we're thinking spiritual thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So that they become, there's no difference between them. And the same with our body, that it all becomes the body, speech, and mind of the spirit. You know, that's what the enlightened ones have, and they become our example. So yes, so this is the little mind, this is the big mind.
Okay.
Alex, did you have something you wanted to say before? I think maybe I cut you off.
It's okay. But I was just can hypothesize that someone may think of like the sword as a bit of aggressive. It's a weapon with a flame, but maybe you mentioned it, but I'm thinking of this as not something that we apply to an object, but more like something that we apply to such elusive things as like confusion and misconception. Is that what the sword is doing in Manjushri hands?
Yes, exactly. It's cutting through confusion, cutting through delusion, ignorance, you know, the 5 poisons: hatred, aversion, desire, attachment, jealousy, envy, and greed and pride. Yes, it's cutting through those things. So it's a wisdom sword. It's a sword of wisdom that cuts through that.
And is it understanding that what happens after it cuts through, it basically reveals the true nature of this, which is emptiness? Is that the idea?
Correct. Correct. And the emptiness is the realization that all this is impermanent. It's empty of its own permanent nature. we want to hold on to it. We want to hold on to our bodies. We want to hold on to all this nature. We think that it's all permanent, but it's all changing. You know, when we look out now, and what they're looking at through these telescopes, you know, happened millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of years ago. It's not there anymore. It's gone. But we're looking at the light that is just getting to where we are. I mean, it's a fantastic idea about that. But what it's pointing to is the impermanence of the universe, of everything that we think we know as being permanent.
Okay, and the last thing, like, do you have an idea why the sword would be flaming? Like, what is the point of having flaming sword in there?
It's hot wisdom, flaming hot wisdom that vaporizes confusion, burns away confusion. But
So
then
it's like help the sword to cut through even more effectively.
yes,
Just like knife goes through the butter, if the knife is hot,
that's
it
right.
will slice.
And then so that's the sun. So that represents the sun, the flaming hot sun. But then the cooling of that wisdom is the compassion, is the skillful means, the method by which we actualize that wisdom. What did we learn when we cut through? Well, if we don't actualize it, if we don't do something with it, then it's not useful. We have to make it's got to be practical. It's got to mean something in as a human being in our lives and so on. So the white
that makes sense. So that wisdom is accumulated in the sutra. That's kind of blue color, cool color.
yes.
So it settles the mind, cools things down. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? We still have a lineage dedication to do. Okay. So if anybody wants any of these books that we have, you know, I can send you the e-files if you can print them. If you want a printed copy, I can mail them to you. I've offered that before. I'm more than happy to do it. I prefer that you have the books. You know, it makes it much easier for you and for us and so on. And so I'll be more than happy. Just send me your mailing addresses and I'll take care of that. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the screen share of our dedication. Okay. So here's the lineage dedication. We begin with that. So next week, I'm going to give a talk on the meaning of the prayers, the most popular prayers that we recite most often. So a lot of these references, you're going to understand better who they are. So here we recite this out loud together. Dorje Chang, Talopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dharma Lord Gampopa, Pagma Drupa, and Lord Kumpa. Please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kagyu Lamas. By this virtue, may I achieve the all-knowing state, and may all who travel in the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Trikampa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. And now the last prayer. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the three times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana and the innate word of virtue not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mothers sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Hom. Om, Ah, Hom. Om, Ah, Hom. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you all very much for joining us tonight.
Lance, thank you for such a wonderful practice. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Dawn.
Yeah, thank you very
For
much.
practice this evening, learning the knowledge and wisdom. It's been
Very
Thank
good.
you, Lance, and thank you, everyone. Very good practice
Thank
today.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Enjoy night all.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Night all.
Okay.
Good night.
Good
See you
night
next week.
all. See
Say
you next
bye-bye.
week. Oh, we'll be coming next week.